Hi, I'm Ann Carmichael, and I'm a student financial aid counselor with Lela, and I want to discuss the student financial aid process with you. And I hope by the end of the presentation, you have a better understanding of the process. I'm here to answer your questions. So if you can think of one as we're moving through the process, please drop it in the Zoom chat box, and I'll get to those at the end. Now, as I'm sure your counselor has already told you, the Louisiana Department of Education asks that the class of 2021 submit the free application for federal student aid as a requirement for graduation. And this simply ensures that your money is ready and waiting for you when you begin college this fall. Now, because college can be expensive, you should be aware of and start preparing for the costs of pursuing your post-secondary education. And these costs include equipment, books, and supplies, like your textbooks, notebooks, a computer if you need one, personal expenses like your phone bill, money to do your laundry, fuel for your car and food purchases outside of your meal plan, room and board, which can include your dorm or an apartment if you're staying off campus, and tuition and fees such as parking, your library, technology, and athletic fees, and also your campus transportation. But the good news is that financial aid is available from the U.S. Department of Education, the state of Louisiana, your college or career school, and nonprofit and private organizations. Every year, the federal government provides more than $120 billion in student financial aid, and we all just want to make sure that you receive your portion. Types of federal student aid include the Federal Pell Grant, the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teacher Educational Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, Federal Work Study, and direct, subsidized, unsubsidized, and PLUS loans. Now, federal student aid grants are a form of financial aid that does not have to be repaid. So when you begin to receive your financial aid offers, you never want to turn down the grant money. The federal grant family includes Pell Grants, and these are for undergraduates with financial need. FSEOGs are for undergraduates with exceptional financial need. Service grants for students of military parents who died defending the country following 9/11, and teach grants for students pursuing a teaching career. The Federal Work Study Program provides part-time jobs to help you pay for your education expenses. So when you tell the financial aid office that you're interested in federal work study, they're going to consider you for this program. Now, this is a FAFSA question, so we encourage each of you to answer yes, you're interested in work study, because it doesn't obligate you to accept positions, but it lets them know to offer them to you. And there are many jobs on campus in the athletic department, the library, and the colleges in which you're planning to study. And your earnings are going to be paid directly to you. And those should be used to pay for your miscellaneous college expenses. And you know, this really looks great on your first professional resume. Now, let's talk just a minute about student loans. Nobody wants to have to take out student loans, but if it's the only way you can complete your undergraduate studies, it is worth the investment. But you need to know that there's a difference. There are the subsidized loans, which are based on financial need, and no interest is charged until you graduate or cease to attend. Now, with the unsubsidized loans, almost everyone is eligible for this type, regardless of financial need. But Interest is beginning to accrue on this loan once it's fully dispersed and then throughout the life of the loan. So you can see that there is a big difference between direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And you always want to accept the subsidized loans before the unsub. And you can remember this when you start to receive your financial aid offers by telling yourself that the U in unsubsidized means that you always pay the interest on this loan. If you are offered student loans and you do need to accept a portion of them, remember only take what you need. Please remember to accept the federal student loans first because payments are not due until you graduate or cease to attend. The interest rate is fixed at a lower rate and no credit check is required. This type of loan is in the student's name. Now, the private student loans should be considered very carefully because most are going to require that payments be made while you're still in school. The interest rate is most often much higher and probably a variable rate. And they almost always require a cosigner, which means that you are going to be going to your parent or another adult and asking them to become part of that loan and repay it if you cannot do so. So be very careful and do your research before accepting a private loan. So to dispel the myth, you can see that almost everyone is eligible for some type of federal student aid. And all federal student aid and most institutional and private aid is contingent upon completion of the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA. Now the FAFSA launched on October 1st and it does so every year. Remember, a FAFSA has to be submitted for every academic year you will be in college. Student financial aid is awarded on a first come, first served basis, so make sure you're getting your FAFSA submitted as soon as possible because we've already been told that over 1 million FAFSAs have already been submitted for this next academic year. You want to pay close attention to your FAFSA deadlines. Your colleges will have a priority financial aid deadline. The state of Louisiana, in the form of the TOPS scholarship, has a FAFSA deadline. And yes, the FAFSA does serve as the TOPS application. Federal student aid has a deadline, and your school district and counselor might also have a deadline to apply. Now begin the FAFSA process by collecting all the documents needed to complete the form. And these include the student and parents' Social Security cards, the 2019 federal income tax returns of the student and parents if they filed, W-2s because there's information on this form that might not be listed on your tax return. And then your bank statements and records of investments because you must report the balances of these accounts as of the date that you submit the FAFSA. Now begin by creating the federal student aid because it allows students and parents to identify themselves electronically when accessing all federal student aid websites, which does include the FAFSA. This ID is going to be created by you, and you will select your own username and password, and remember to only use your personal information. Now, each student and one of his parents should create an ID by visiting fsaid.ed.gov. Students, if you don't already have a personal email address, now is the time to create one. You don't want to use your school address when creating your federal student aid ID because once you graduate from high school, you will no longer have access to that email account And federal student A will have no way of getting in touch with you. Also, don't share any information in your ID that could have been put perhaps in a parent's ID. Don't use a parent's mobile phone number. That's considered shared information and it can cause trouble signing the FAFSA. Remember that your FSA ID is legally binding. It's your official electronic signature, so be sure that you're recording it because you're going to use it every year that you're in college, and then keep it in a safe place. Now, if you don't have access to a computer, you can download the FAFSA mobile app, and it's called My Student Aid. You can use it to submit your FAFSA on your mobile device or your mobile phone, or you can complete the FAFSA on the web-based version at fafsa.gov. Begin the FAFSA by logging in with the student's FSA ID because the FAFSA is the student's application for federal student aid. The parent FSA ID is going to be used later in the form if he chooses to transfer his tax information from the IRS and place it directly in the FAFSA, and then it will be used again to sign the student's FAFSA. So the class of 2021 should complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA because that is the academic year that you are applying for financial aid. Now, if you're graduating early or you're going to begin college earlier during the 2021 academic year, you will have to submit both FAFSAs. Once you get into the form, you will see that there are 8 sections that must be completed before submitting. There's the student demographic section where the student will be asked to report his social security number, name, date of birth, email address, physical address, residency status, and gender. School selection, where you will report the name of your high school, the colleges that you would like your FAFSA data to be sent to, and your housing plans on each of those campuses. Next is the dependency status section, where the student will be asked to consider a list of 10 questions that will determine his dependency status. And we're going to talk in detail about this in a minute. Then you'll be asked to report the number of dependents living in the student's household and the parent's education. Now, parents will often ask, why am I being asked what my education level is? And that is because there could be additional financial aid for first-generation college students. So make sure you're answering that question accurately. Then you'll move over into the parent demographic section where parents will report their social security numbers, their marital status, and their email address. And then parent and financials will be reported. You'll want to state your 2019 working wages, any federal benefits that you receive, and your savings and investment balances. And then it's time to sign and submit the FAFSA. Once you do, you'll receive a confirmation. Now, as you move through the FAFSA, if you need clarification about a question, look over to the right-hand side. You'll see a question mark. You can always click on that question mark to get more detailed information. You can select the hyperlinks that are provided within the form, request an online FAFSA chat, call Federal Student Aid, or Lela's FAFSA helpline. But for this session, I'm going to cover only the most commonly asked FAFSA questions. If you do have a question that about the material or something that I didn't touch on, please feel free to contact me directly. I'm going to leave my email address and phone number at the end of the presentation. A student must be a citizen or eligible non-citizen to complete a FAFSA. If you're not sure what an eligible non-citizen is, but you think you could be one, you can always click on the hyperlink provided in that section and find out more information about that status. But if a student is a citizen or eligible non-citizen, but his parents are not, that's fine. They can go ahead and complete their FAFSA, but they will enter zeros anywhere a parent's social security number is asked for. Young men between the ages of 18 and 26 must be registered with Selective Service to receive federal student aid. So guys, if you haven't already done so, or you haven't turned 18 yet, you can register within the FAFSA, and once you turn 18, you will be automatically registered. Only the colleges that you list on the FAFSA in the school selection section will consider you for financial aid. So add all of the schools that you're considering, and you can add up to 10 at a time. Now, if you're planning to apply to more than 10 colleges, you'll want to follow the instructions listed in this section. To determine your dependency status, you're going to be asked to consider these 10 questions. And I'm going to give you a moment to look over them. Now, as you're considering these questions within the FAFSA, if you have a question and you want more clarification, please feel free to contact the Lela's FAFSA helpline or Federal Student Aid to make sure that you're answering these correctly. Because if you can answer yes to just one of these questions and provide a legal document supporting your claim, then you're considered an independent student for FAFSA purposes, and you will not be required to provide parental information. Now, what if you are considered dependent because you can't answer one of those 10 questions, but you live on your own and say you file your own taxes? You still are going to have to get mom or dad's information. If you've attempted to do that and you cannot get it, I will go over in just a few minutes what your next steps will be. Now, one of the most commonly asked questions is, which parent do I report on FAFSA? And that's easy. You just go list those dependents on your FAFSA. But if the parent that you lived with the longest in the past 12 months is either separated, divorced, or was never married, then you should list only that biological parent on your FAFSA. However, if that parent is remarried, then you must report that step parent as well. In other words, Federal Student Aid wants to know the financial standing of the household that the student has lived in the longest in the 12 months prior to the date that the FAFSA was submitted. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you're identified as a dependent student, but your parents refuse to provide information on your FAFSA, You can state, I'm unable to provide information about my parents, and submit your FAFSA without parental information. However, you will only be considered for federal student loans. So to be able to be considered for the grants, which are the free monies, it's your responsibility to contact the college financial aid office to discuss your situation, and they can help you work through this. Now, to make processing your federal student aid a lot quicker, students and parents, if they filed a tax return in 2019, should use the IRS data retrieval tool. This simply allows you to link over to the Internal Revenue System's website, grab your tax information from 2019, and drop it right into your FAFSA. Not only does this ensure that your information is correct and you don't have to go line by line with your tax return trying to figure out which line goes in which field, it's going to diminish the student's chances of being selected for verification. In other words, the college is not going to take your word for it if you manually enter your income information. They are going to ask the student and parent, if they filed, to go to the IRS site, request a tax transcript, and have it sent directly to the college. So please use the data retrieval tool. If you're having trouble linking to the IRS, please feel free to give us a call at Lela or call Federal Student Aid, and we'll walk you through the process. Once you do link, you'll be taken directly into the IRS website. And here you will see, you'll be asked to take a look at your 2019 return and enter information exactly as it's printed. What if you've moved? The IRS is not concerned with that. They want to know what's printed on your return. What if your tax preparer has misspelled your name? We've seen that before. That can diminish your chances of being able to use the tool. You must print your name, even if it's misspelled, exactly as it's printed on your tax return. And then it's almost time to sign and submit your FAFSA. But before you do, please review your student aid report. This report reflects every question that you were asked and your answer to it. And a review of the report just ensures that the financial aid office receives accurate information so that your aid can be processed timely. Now, the student and one of his parents will be required to sign the FAFSA, and this is where your FSA IDs come into play. The student will be asked to provide his signature, and one of his parents must sign using the FSA ID that they created. Once you do submit, you will receive a confirmation page. This is a pop-up on your screen. Although the student will receive an email telling him that his FAFSA was submitted, this is the only time you're going to get this much detail. You'll see the date and time that you submitted your FAFSA. You will be able to see the next steps that you need to take to complete the student financial aid process. You can take a look at the schools that you've listed that you want your FAFSA data to be sent to, and then you can consider your financial aid estimates. And I'm going to emphasize the word estimate because everyone gets excited when they see the dollar amounts, but your college financial aid offices, not federal student aid, are going to be preparing your financial aid offers. If you begin a FAFSA without completing it, or you submit a FAFSA, say without a signature, you will receive a reminder from Federal Student Aid. This will go to the student's email address, and it will remind him to update his FAFSA and go ahead and submit it. Now, mom or dad, If you're listening in, be sure that you're checking with your student to make sure that they are checking their email for communication from Federal Student Aid. What if you want to add a school, or you want to change your contact information, or maybe the college has asked you to make some changes on your FAFSA? There are several ways to do so. You can send the information in by mail. You can contact the school's financial aid office. They might be able to make the change for you. But the easiest way to go about it is to log back in to your FAFSA with your FSA ID, make your correction or addition, and sign and submit the FAFSA. It's important to remember that every time you make a change to your FAFSA, which you can, an unlimited number of times, you must sign and submit each time. Once your FAFSA is fully processed, at that time it will be shared with your colleges. Then each financial aid office will begin to identify any aid that you might be eligible to receive. Now, if your family's financial situation has changed since 2019, and I'm afraid we're going to see a lot of that this year, especially in the state of Louisiana, with the health situation and the hurricanes that have ripped through our state, contact your financial aid offices because they might have the ability to adjust your aid by using their own professional judgment. So say that mom or dad, or hopefully not, but both have lost their jobs. Maybe you've lost your job. Perhaps there have been some unexpected medical expenses that your family has incurred. The financial aid office can work with you to identify perhaps some additional assistance to help you through the academic year, but it's your responsibility to contact them because they're going to be determining your net price. And they're going to do this by taking their cost of attendance, subtracting any grants or scholarships, and providing you with the net price, which you will either have to pay in cash or accept student loans to pay this balance. Now, student financial aid offers will come directly from the colleges. So every college that you've applied, that you've sent your FAFSA data to, should begin to work on your financial aid offer. Some of them will wait until you finish your admissions application to their school, so make sure you're doing that as well. But each financial aid offer should show the cost of attendance at their college, any grants, scholarship, work study, student loans that they have to offer you. So read over these offers carefully and respond to any requests that they might have of you so that they can quickly, process your financial aid. Once you do make your decision on where you're going to school, you will want to accept your aid in this order: scholarships and grants. This is gift aid that doesn't have to be repaid. Federal work study, which is earned money that does not have to be paid back. And then loans. This is borrowed money and you must repay it with interest. The student financial aid process is explained in detail in Lela's FAFSA completion guide for the class of 2021, and it's free for all Louisiana high school seniors. So if you haven't already received your copy from your counselor, please email me and I'll be happy to send it to you. And I'll also include Lela's senior checklist to help you stay on track and be ready for college this fall. Scholarships are gift aid that does not have to be repaid, and there are thousands of them. They are offered by your colleges, your parents' employers, nonprofit, community, religious groups, professional and social organizations. Some scholarships are merit-based, awarded on your academic achievement or some trait or talent that you have, and others are based on financial need. A scholarship could cover the entire cost of your tuition, or it could be a one-time award. But bottom line is applying for and winning these scholarships is going to reduce the cost of your education, which ultimately means it's going to reduce your student loan debt. Ask your counselor about scholarships that he or she knows about. I'm sure she's already told you about a few. And also contact your college financial aid office or your admissions recruiters. They see an awful lot of scholarships come across their desks. This year, Lela offers a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship for Louisiana high school seniors who have completed the FAFSA, so everyone is eligible. And once you're in college, or if you have an older sibling who's in college, then you can apply for our $1,000 Choose Louisiana scholarship if you're attending a Louisiana college. And we hope you do. We want to keep you here in the state. You can register for those and find out more details about them at lela.org. Now, if you are going to a pricier college and you need help paying for your expenses after accepting all of the grants, scholarships, federal and state aid that you're offered, Lela does administer a nonprofit education loan program. And you can find out more about that at lelachoice.org. We are always here to listen to your questions and answer them. And if we don't have the answers, we will direct you to someone who does. So please feel free to contact me at Lela's FAFSA helpline or by email. And I'm going to give you a moment to jot down this information. And while you're doing that, I want to let you know that a copy of this presentation is going to be posted on our YouTube channel. It's called Ask Lela. And if you feel like you want to take another look or you want to fast forward and go over one of the sections, please feel free to do that and share it with those who were not able to join us. So I really appreciate it. I hope you will contact us if you need help completing your FAFSA. And I look forward to receiving your FAFSA completion scholarship application.